Welcome back to Campbell Kitchen, everybody. Today we're gonna learn how to make ramen. Let's do it. Okay, so let's talk about ramen. There's four main components. You have the broth, you have the noodles, you have the toppings, and you have this thing called a tare. Now, what is a tare? T-A-R-E. It's the flavoring component. So when you see a ramen that's a miso ramen, so that's a miso tare. Or if you see a ramen that's a shoyu ramen, which is what we're making today, that's a soy sauce ramen flavor. Also there's shio, which I think is salt. So there's different tares. And in order to make a tare, you basically use umami rich ingredients like soy sauce, mirin, sake, sugar, dried fish, baby fish. You kind of soak it all together, all these cool ingredients that are not really normal in the United States, very common in Japan and Asia. Really, really flavorful. So this adds a real depth to your soup, and this is crucial. So to make the broth and the base soup is very simple. Most of you guys have probably done this before. So I'm gonna walk you through every single step that I do. So for the noodles, I'm not gonna make my own noodles right now. I will in the future. I just buy noodles that look good and taste good. So I use this company called Sun Noodle. They sell it at the store right up the street. They're pretty tasty for ramen. Full disclosure, I read most of this stuff through this guy called Ramen Lord. I found him on Reddit. He has a book called The Book of Ramen. I'm gonna link the description below and you guys can check that out. It's really informative. I learned so much from him and it's really fun to experiment with his recipes. So without further ado, let's get into the ramen. Today I'll be making a chicken and pork chintan, which is basically a broth that's simmered slowly instead of boiled rapidly. So in order to do that, you want to start with your pork bones in a pot. I covered it with water and I brought it up to a boil. Once it boiled hard, I turned down to a simmered for about 15 minutes until all that scum is removed. You gotta skim the scum. You don't want any of that scum. I rinsed the bones under cold water, removing any of that coagulated blood. I also scrubbed my pot out to start fresh. Return your pork bones to the pot and now add your chicken bones. I cut up one whole chicken and I also had some chicken feet. I removed the nail and I had some other chicken bones that were laying around that I threw in the soup. Add your bones to the pot and cover with cold water. You always want to start with cold water. It draws out more of the impurities and I think it makes the soup taste a little better. So once it comes up to a boil, you're going to see a lot of the more scum, blood, impurities. You want to skim aggressively. The more aggressive you are with skimming, the better your soup is going to turn out. So I simmered for about 8 hours and I added some aromatic ingredients the last hour. So I chopped up 1 onion, about 10 garlic cloves, and about 1 inch of ginger peeled. And here, you guys have seen me do this before. I'm straining my soup and I'm gonna ice it down. It's really important to ice your soup down because if it cools slowly, it's gonna turn bad really quickly. Now it's time to make that tare I was talking about. Start out with some brown sugar, some kombu, some niboshi. These are little dried fish. I don't know exactly what kind of fish they are. I remove the heads. Sometimes the heads get a little bitter. This is light soy sauce. I don't even want to try and pronounce it. It's high quality, it's light soy sauce. It's really good. And I also use some dark soy sauce. This is really high quality too. It's double brewed soy sauce. I'll leave a link in the description for all this stuff. It's super high quality. The better soy sauce, the better the tare tastes. This is some sake. It's way too good to use in this, but I'm still gonna do it. It's like 50 bucks a bottle. Delicious. And I also added some mirin to this. Now it's time to refrigerate. You can refrigerate it for multiple days. I let it sit overnight. I put it in a pot and I brought it up almost to a boil. I turned off the heat and I add the dried bonito flake. There's a very specific method that I'll leave in the recipe, but just for most people, this is the easiest way to do it. Don't boil it, whatever you do. It ruins the flavor. Now strain it and throw it in the refrigerator. Now let's make some pork onion lard. I had some beautiful heritage breed pork fat laying in my freezer. I added it to a pot with about 2 cups of water. I turned it on medium heat. I let it cook for about an hour, hour and a half, and I was left with some beautiful rendered pork fat. You can buy pork lard from your local grocery store. That will work just fine. While the pork fat was rendering, I chopped up an onion. Now I'm gonna add this onion to the pork fat. I'm gonna cook it for about 45 minutes, right before it gets any color. I'm gonna add my ginger and my garlic, and I'm gonna cook for another 20-30 minutes. And right when it gets nice, light golden brown, kill the heat, let it cool down, strain it, and you're good to go. Now let's make the chashu, the delicious braised pork belly. So I start off with the usual suspects. I have some mirin, some ginger, some garlic, some brown sugar, some soy sauce. I cooked out the sake and the mirin a little bit, then I added my soy sauce. And I'm gonna add my pork belly to this, and I'm gonna cover with water. And you can cook it on the stovetop and flip it every 30 minutes like I did. This piece right here took me about 2.5 hours, 3 hours. Or you can just put it in the oven at 325 for about 2.5 hours. So after 2.5 hours of flipping it and basting it, this is my pork belly. It's beautiful, it's so good. You let it cool down in the liquid, and then you take it out of the liquid, put it in the fridge, and you can use that liquid to marinate the eggs, which is exactly what I did. I took off the fat from the top and marinated the eggs in that liquid. Now let's build the toppings. I have some Dynasty brand bamboo shoots that suck. Get a different brand if you can, but I still want bamboo shoots, so I'm gonna eat them. I have some black fungus, which I would have liked to have chopped up. I've never really used this stuff. I've definitely eaten it, but I've never really used it. So I'm just rehydrating it. And trust me, that is way too much. That's enough for like 100 ramen bowls. This stuff just blooms. It is insane. You need like one piece of black fungus. And there's a little piece of pork belly once it's cooled. This is several days old, so I've done a lot of this stuff in advance. Now I'm chopping it up into thick slabs. You can eat as much as you'd like, but just keep it kind of room temperature to warm. I slice up some scallions. For this one, I'm just gonna do like thin shreds because I think it looks fancy for a picture. Scallions provide great color, and also flavor is just so good, and ramen is super important in my opinion. Add it to a little water, they curl up and they look nice. Now I have some nori, I'm just cutting into strips. Now let's revisit that egg. I boiled it for 6 minutes, I peeled it, and I marinated it in that pork liquid with a little bit of water. You want a nice soft egg. I think it's more delicious that way, but you can really actually eat it any way you want. It's important to heat up your ramen bowl. You want to make sure your ramen stays hot for as long as possible. Now it's time to measure out our seasonings. So I have the tare, I do 30 milliliters of tare, and I also have that ginger onion pork lard. I do 30 milliliters of the pork lard as well. You don't want this stuff cold, you want this stuff room temperature. I'm going to now measure out my broth. I measure out 300 milliliters of broth and I put it on the stove to boil. This whole while, I'm also boiling liquid for my noodles. These are the Sun noodles I'm using. I'm not a sponsor. They're okay, you know, they're fine. They're not the best, but they work. So now in my heated bowl, I'm adding my tare and I'm adding my pork lard. I'm gonna add my boiling hot broth right in that bowl. The noodles have been cooking this whole time. I strain out the noodles and I add them directly into that broth. To make the noodles look a little nicer, I grab them with tongs and I just drape them over themselves to make it look a little bit nicer. Now it's time to add all your toppings, and obviously you can add any toppings you'd like. I'm adding some beautiful pork belly that's just a little bit warm, just to take the chill off, some nori, some eggs, some bamboo shoots, some black fungus, and some beautiful scallions. And this is how I'm gonna enjoy my bowl today, and it turned out really great. It actually tasted phenomenal. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Make sure you guys hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and let me know in the comments below. Hit me up if you guys want me to make anything special for you or do any research and do some cool videos. Also, if you did this recipe or a similar recipe and you found something that you really liked or wanted to learn more about, let me know what you guys found. Let me know if you found it interesting. And as always, thanks for watching and stay tuned for more videos coming next week. Take care, guys.